Hello, I'm Robert, fact checker and science blogger, and this time I'm going to help people. I help people who are scared of many things, and this is about if you once you manage to see through whatever it is that scares you. And this I've got the example of a fake saber-toothed tiger. Let me see if I can find it. This video is here. We go. It's coming up. Where's the fake saber-toothed tiger? So I think most of you won't be. There we are. Fake saber-toothed tiger. So most of you wouldn't be scared of that. It's just kind of rather fun. But way back in our past, in our history, this would be an absolutely terrifying thing for you. The actual real thing would be very dangerous indeed. And so the fears that people I help have, then they have this kind of physical thing that you got scared. We have these instincts, these reactions from the past, from when we used to live in caves, and when there were creatures like this, but actually the real thing, really scary, that could actually eat you, could actually attack you and kill you. And this is, and we have these reactions from them. And the thing is that it's probably better to be scared 10 times of a saber-toothed tiger when actually all that was happening was just a branch clicking in the a branch cracking in the wind or whatever, for the one time when there actually is a real one, and it's far better than that. Then you run away when there's a real one, rather than not to be scared at all, and then you get the crack from the real saber-toothed tiger and you don't do anything because you're just someone that doesn't get scared very easily. So this thing that you have of panicking very easily, it's actually evolutionarily worthwhile. However, sadly, it's being triggered in situations where it's no longer needed, because you're not living in a situation with saber-toothed tigers. And so then here's this example. If I give this example, I'll yes, the sound is muted, good. Then you get these young, why isn't it stuck in braining? Yeah, so this is a thing that happens with young kids sometimes. Then they notice their shadow, and then they're suddenly very scared of their shadow. They run away from it. They're terrified by it. Oh, what's that thing? What's that scary thing? Oh dear, I must run away as fast as I can. So that's so with a lot of us, and then there's the hilarious thing. Although it's in a way it's sort of, there's the thing about our cats going to get terrified by cucumbers. Look, see? So for some reason cats have an instinctive fear of it's not necessarily cucumbers, but just some object that is just suddenly has been put there while they weren't noticing, and suddenly they see it, and then some of them just don't seem to mind too much. And it's this one obviously that wasn't bothered, but this one, you see that it's absolutely terrifying. It's a little bit, I'm not sure, and then many of us are scared of heights, even when we know it's safe. I'll have to re-find that video. So you can also often be scared of things that are actually not objectively harmful in any way whatsoever. And so a lot of the people I help have been scared of things that can't harm them, never could have harmed them, such as these false prophecies. There's no way that a false prophecy can harm you. These people that have said these scary things don't know what they're talking about. But even after you've got over that, and you're at least beginning to see through it, you can still be very scared. And I often get people saying to me, I'm still scared, but I don't know what of. I don't know why I'm scared anymore. I'm just scared. And so if that happens to you, that's a very common reaction. And it seems to be that as you're gradually getting better and you no longer have a particular thing that you're scared of, but you have the habit in your mind of just being scared. It's kind of waves of fear, like kind of maybe something cued by something like a date or something, or maybe you don't know where it's come from, and you don't have any particular objective thing that you're frightened of. It isn't even, someone said some particular thing. You're just suddenly scared and you don't know why. And this is, well, Chris knows quite what's happening. There's probably some chemical thing going on in your brain or something. But you can actually get this feeling of impending doom and absolute certainty that something absolutely dreadful is going to happen if you get stung by this particular tiny jellyfish. This tiny jellyfish is responsible for Irukandji syndrome. And it's not dangerous to most people if you get out of water and get treatment. But for some people who are stung by it become convinced they're going to die, although they don't. And you get a similar feeling if you eat too many nutmegs, like huge numbers of them. You get a feeling of impending doom. So that's the thing that you need to, and that's the video of cracking grass. I've lost it now. And so it's a jellyfish. It's not dangerous to you at all, and yet you can feel, you get this feeling of impending doom called Irukandji syndrome. And so in the same thing, like in 2012, and then another thing to bear in mind is why. Well, I'll just bring up that in case it's something interesting. I forget what that is now. But so in 2012, there was never anything there that was any harm to anyone. But it's so the other thing to bear in mind is that your fear can't make the thing you're afraid of happen. So in 2012, a large, not the majority of the world population, but a significant minority, millions and millions of people were totally sure, or reasonably sure, or at least somewhat scared, that something major was going to happen to the Earth, although there was absolutely no risk at all. Well, all that fear didn't do anything to the world. You can't make bad things happen by being scared of them, not in that sense. You can, bad things may happen because you're scared and you're absent-minded when you're crossing the road, you get hit by a bus. But the thing you're scared of, you don't make that happen by being scared. So if you're scared of something that's impossible, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter how scared you are of it. So that's something to bear in mind with. So when you get sudden fear, and maybe it's about something that you have seen through but you're still scared of it, or maybe you don't even know what you're scared of, then just it may help to realize that what you're doing is just experiencing a particular kind of feeling, and your mind has got convinced it would be if you ate too many nutmegs, and which is about how it's an habitual fear. And so, yes, this is an idea. So if you want the truth about astronomy, go to astronomy sites. And you don't need to listen to both sides of the argument. So you get these people saying things like this: oh well, there's Paul Beckley and he's making this false prophecy, and then other people are saying that what he says is nonsense. And you get people say, you've got to listen to both of them. That's not true. It's absolutely perfectly correct to make a decision that such and such a person is just not worth listening to at all. You don't have to give him equal time. You don't have to give him any time. If someone has proven themselves to be a totally unreliable source, as Paul Beckley has shown by over and over again making these false prophecies, and if you ask a scientific person, they say, does Paul Beckley know anything about asteroids, or about the moon, or about planets? And they'll say no. He makes many mistakes. He doesn't understand the most basic ideas in science. he would fail his the most basic exams that you could have at school about science. So then, once you realise that, once you realise he is not a scientist, so I can't advise you about the science, and then you ask someone who knows about theology and say, is he teaching me correctly about Christianity? And they'll say, no, that's appalling. There's nothing in Christianity about telling you to buy gold. There's nothing about Christianity about there being a vampire apocalypse or about invasion by aliens. None of these things he tells you about have anything to do with Christianity. So, and that if he was a Catholic, and the Bible says not to prophesy return of Jesus. So in multiple ways, he would just be thrown out of. If he was a Catholic priest said those things, they'd be out of their job the next day. So then you listen to that, and then you say, well, okay, I don't need to listen to both sides of this. He's obviously a crackpot, and I can just ignore him. And just like someone goes past the street who's sort of shouting crazy things, you get people who do that sometimes. Who just walk down the street mumbling to themselves, suddenly shouting out in the middle of the day, or whatever. And you don't have to stop and give two sides to anything they're saying, and consider their point of view. I mean, unless you're trying to help them, or you're interested in helping people who've got various mental problems, or anxieties and so on. So you don't need to listen to both sides of the argument if one side is being given by a crackpot or a completely unreliable source. In that case, he is absolutely right. And if they're a bullshitter is someone who just doesn't care whether what they're saying is true or false. And it can seem very impressive to people who don't understand the topic, because it's very difficult to understand what they're saying. But the reason it's not difficult to understand what they're saying, because there's no actual content there. They don't even know themselves what they're saying. And so you get people like that who are bullshitters as well. A technical term means someone who says something that just actually, their eye isn't on the truth, it's just on being impressive. And they don't actually know what the thing they said means. So again, you don't need to listen to both sides of the argument if one side is a bullshitter. And I gave an example, like if someone says to you, do you know that Usain Bolt's a top-ranked tennis player, and he won Wimbledon in 2008, and all the sprint videos are hoaxes and a lie perpetuated by the establishment? That's something I don't think anyone believes, but that's not that different to some of the conspiracy theories. I mean, to a scientist, some of the conspiracy theories that I debunk are just like that. As absurd to someone with astronomical scientific background as that. Just nonsense. Where was that? Usain Bolt. I've lost the page, lost him. Anyway. Yes, here we are. Or if someone came up to you and said, did you know that you're standing on your head? And you say, do you mean relative to Australia? No, you're just standing on your head. So then, so again, like I said in the other video just now, if someone comes into the room and says, I'm Julius Caesar, then you don't need to listen to both sides of that argument either. I mean, it's obviously they're not. So you do get these situations where it is absolutely right and perfectly okay to just say, well, I don't need to listen to this. Unless you want it to be involved in therapy and helping them therapeutically, then you just don't need to listen to them. You can just move on. And so. And it really helps a lot if you can. And so then I've got my 7 tips, which I'll maybe talk about separately. And do I have them here? Well, they have them up the right hand side. pick them up. So there's lots of things you can do then. Once you realise that this is just a habitual fear that you've got into, and so I am not providing therapy. I want to be absolutely clear about that. Our group is not a therapy group. We are just fact-checking. But if you have PTSD, for instance, then there isn't just one therapy. There are lots of therapies that they can use. And PTSD, which many of the people I help have, and they get post-traumatic stress disorder from just reading something on the internet. And it's so stressful to their mind that it's a traumatic situation, and then the after effects of post-traumatic stress disorder, and they're diagnosed by therapists as having PTSD just from reading something on the internet. And the good news is that PTSD is very treatable. That's quite a common diagnosis for people I help. And if you can get a good therapist, then this is one condition. It's not like being manic depressive. It's not like being even like very, very anxious and depressed. PTSD seems to be very treatable, and if just getting the debunks and working through it yourself, eventually you get over it, but it takes a long time. If you can find a good therapist, then they have half a dozen different ways of treating it. If you've got a good one, and they will try one method. If that doesn't work, they'll try another, and then they'll try another. And there's many tools in their toolbox to help you to get over PTSD or generalized anxiety disorders, things like that. No, that's not the right one. Acute stress disorder, that's the other thing. And that's a kind of downgraded version of PTSD, basically. And those are both things that you can get over quite quickly. They are very treatable. In my experience, not treating them myself, but of the people I help and the ones who get treated by therapists. So don't ignore the therapist. If your therapist doesn't do it for you, then find another. So I'm not saying you need before you can get proper therapy, you need a diagnosis. So you will need a diagnosis first, and then if what you have is PTSD, and then you need to, if you're getting the wrong kind of cure, if you're getting the wrong treatment, then maybe there's been a problem with your diagnosis. You can go to your therapist and say, this isn't working for me, and then they might examine again, because sometimes you need to go to another therapist and things like that. But eventually, when you get the right treatment, it's amazing what they can do for you nowadays. So first you have to see that there's nonsense and bullshit. Then you're probably still very scared. You can't help to stop thinking about it. You can't stop yourself. So a lot of people try to think, well, I will just try and stop these thoughts because they're so scary. That doesn't work. It doesn't work to stop yourself. Instead, you have to cognitive therapy. Well, it may help. Cognitive behavior therapy. And that's nothing to do with psychotherapy. It's not looking at the past. It's looking at just coming to terms and just letting things be, and just not pushing them away and not trying to grab onto them, but just recognizing that it's like walking through a city or something, and these are the or some people say it's a bit like buses, like waiting at a train station with the trains going past or something, and the scary thoughts. And anyway, you can find out about cognitive behavior therapy and its ways of working with them, so as not to get caught up in them, but without trying to push them away, which just doesn't work. The more you push, the stronger they become. So but there are other ways, much more gentle ways of working with them. And then so do seek health professionals, and be sure to continue to eat plenty and to try and sleep well, and try to think about something you plan to do in next week or in the future after the date, and try to turn your mind before towards whatever that is, something very that you're looking forward to. That helps to make it seem real the time after whatever date you're scared of. And do continue with your everyday life. So I often get people, they retire from life. They don't want to leave their room. They find excuses not to go to work. They leave college and go home because they're so scared. And if you can, it's generally good to continue with your everyday life. You may find it actually is somewhat easier than you thought it was. And not, they kind of stop without even really trying it properly. Everyone's position is unique, but the number one thing is to stop reading sensationalist news, stop watching the YouTube videos. For instance, if you're scared by Paul Beckley's prophecies, then don't watch the Paul Beckley videos. It's quite a simple thing, but I get people I help who are terrified of Paul Beckley, and yet they seem to watch every video that he does, or they at least watch a video every week or so, and often more often than that, several times a week. And then they're constantly asking me to debunk his latest video because they got scared by it. So if you've got into that cycle, it really does help, if you can, to just stop watching his videos, because they're scaring you. And then you know from my debunks that over and over again that the things he says are nonsense. So, just why go through all that of watching another video, getting scared by it, going asking me again, what did he mean, what is that all about? And I say, oh, it's just nonsense, and I explain how and why. Then that's when you realise this is not a reliable source. This is not someone that I should be listening to at all. So try and stop reading and doing the things that reinforce what you're doing, and do things that are positive. And this is my thing about breathing in and out slowly to calm a panic attack, and the various positive things you can do with your life. And it's about seeing health professionals. And I've got a video, if you want it, I've got some videos that might be helpful to show to a health professional. I think I've said enough there. So yes, I just wanted to make that basic point. A lot of people are making this journey from being very scared, and the good news is that, especially if you've got something like acute stress disorder or PTSD, they are very treatable, and especially if you've got a therapist, but even without. But for the people who for some reason can't find a therapist, especially during lockdown, it could be especially difficult to find a therapist. But some people, for one reason or another, they can't afford a therapist. If you're in a country where you've got to pay for the therapy, then you mightn't be able to afford it. Then, or you've tried therapists and you just can't seem to get on with them. Then be reassured also that gradually, especially with these sort of things, it seems that even just these very simple things about disengaging your mind and more physical activity, doing things that you enjoy, then slowly you do get over it. It takes a long time. It's much faster if you can get professional help. So anyway, I hope that helps you. And you've got lots of experience in the group, so many people who have got over their fears, and the fact checking makes a big help, big difference. And then once they realise that what they say, what they've been scared of, is just not something to be scared of at all, then gradually, the rest of the process gradually unfolds, and they get back to more and more like they were before the thing that scared them. You can definitely, whatever your baseline was, I mean, like if your baseline before was that you were manic depressive, or that you had generalized anxiety disorder and so on, then it's harder to work with those or OCD or something. Then OCD is very treatable as well. and most of those things, you can certainly do a lot to kind of take the edge off them. But certainly, if there was a particular date when you got very scared, or a particular series of dates when you gradually got very scared about whatever it was, asteroid impacts, climate change, false prophecies or something, and then you got really worked up, and then you've been panicking for weeks, months, or in some cases it's years, then this is like post-traumatic stress disorder or acute stress disorder. It's almost certainly something of that sort, because it had an onset, it was triggered by something, and that means you can go back. And it's these, in practice, these things are very treatable. It's not your baseline. Your baseline you can go back to. You can get over, because it's much harder for people who've got a baseline that is that is acutely anxious. But even if you had things like this, you've been scared ever since you were a child. Maybe you were a child in 2012, and say you were 12 in 2012 and now you're 20, then that's quite young. Or you were, say, 8 and now you're 18. Then that would be 8 years you've been, during which you might have been repeatedly scared by other things that in one way or another were a bit like the 2012 false prophecy. And so you would have had, but still your baseline is whatever you were like before 2012. So your 8-year-old self, before that first false prophecy that scared you. That's your baseline. And you can get back there. And it's much harder when you've had 8 years. I mean, some people that I help have been constantly scared. Frequent panic attacks. Most years they've had many panic attacks and fears about false prophecies ever since 2012. So that is quite a long time of 8 years of being very scared and sometimes suicidal for 8 years. And that's quite a big kind of, it's like a huge oil tanker that's got, the very big ones, a kilometre long or something, or however big, what the big ones, are they kilometre long? They're hundreds of metres anyway, and full of oil, and it's very, very difficult for them to change direction. It takes very, very slowly. So you've got a lot of momentum built up from 8 years of being panicking. But over time, very slowly, you can get over that, and you can get over it much faster with a good therapist. It is all treatable. If whatever your baseline was, and then whatever your baseline is after all that, then you may still have things that need more professional help. But you might, and there are medications that help, and it depends on the person. So your doctor may prescribe medication for you, but you need to give feedback to your doctor about how it's working, because some medications that work for some people just don't work for other people. We're all individuals. So do give your doctor feedback about whatever medication you're taking, and if it has some effects that are not desirable, then talk about that to your doctor, and he will have different ones that he can try you on. So there are quite a lot of possibilities there, and don't, if you're receiving medication from a doctor, don't just stop it by yourself, because the drugs that they give you nowadays, they are not addictive normally, but they do, especially ones that affect your mind, the ones like the serotonin inhibitor ones or whatever, then serotonin selective uptake inhibitor, whatever that thing is, a bit of a mouthful. Anyway, it's not inhibiting serotonin, but these need to be tapered off gradually over a number of weeks. So the doctor will tell you what to do, and he may well give you another medicine that you should take at the same time in order to help you go off it. It's not because you're addicted, but because you have to make a transition when you go off the drug. So it's not a good idea if you're being prescribed a medicine and you just don't like the effects of it, it's not a good idea to just stop and go cold turkey yourself. If you've been prescribed it, and if it's one of these highly effective drugs, then you need to talk to your doctor about it and say, I don't like what this is doing to me. I'm getting depressed, or I'm getting suicidal, or I feel kind of funny and strange. I just don't like what seems to be have happened to me since I took this drug, so I need to go off it. Please tell me what to do. And do you have a substitute? So that's what to do. If he gives you some medicine, but most people, then what they give you is very helpful. But you do get these occasions where sometimes people find that what they have been prescribed, it's just not right for them as an individual. They get some unexpected reaction or other, and so go and tell your doctor right away when that happens, and the doctor will help you to just ease off it if that's what you want. Maybe just go back to no drugs, or to try another one, but don't do it by yourself unless the doctor has told you that it's okay to do it by yourself. Right. And yes, and so if you go to if you haven't seen a therapist before, a few things that people worry about. Do explain you've got to be very straightforward with your therapist, and be sure to explain everything, even if it seems silly. They are used to people coming to them with things that seem silly, like people who are afraid of spiders. So I don't think that they will judge you. They won't judge you and say, oh, that's such a silly thing to be scared of. If they do that, they're not decent therapists. You should just find someone else. They're not going to do that. They're not going to say it's silly. And but then be sure to explain it. And then there's some things, and then they need to know about everything. They need to know to diagnose your situation properly, or you can end up with the wrong kind of treatment. And I get people who they get a therapist, and they kind of want to please the therapist. The therapist asks them sort of leading questions, not really meaning to, and then they will answer them in the way they think the therapist wants. So be a bit careful about that, and just tell them plainly and straightforwardly what is actually happening with you, not tell them what you think they want you to say. And for instance, and if they say, are you hearing sounds, then don't say that you're hearing sounds if you're not. Just tell them exactly what is happening. And if you're just having thoughts, then that's not the same thing as hearing voices. Everyone has thoughts. So sometimes the people I help get misdiagnosed being schizophrenic. If that happens, then the treatment is so very different, it seems to make people worse. If you've got post-traumatic stress disorder and you treat it as if you are schizophrenic, then it makes things worse and worse. So be sure to be very clear about what your situation is. I think it's partly because people with PTSD, for instance, they have things like when they wake up in the morning, they may find it difficult to move. And the reason is because they are so scared, and so freezing like a little animal. And there's some, I can't remember the things now, but there are a few things that are in common between PTSD and schizophrenia, and it's very occasionally you get this confusion, or acute stress disorder. And so you just have to be very clear. The reason is, and because the things that you're scared of, if you have got PTSD as a result of reading these news stories, then some of the things you're scared of can seem like that you produce them from your own mind, because they're so absurd and strange sounding. Like if you say that you're afraid that the sun is suddenly going to flash or something, or you're afraid that some of the most stranger things that people have said as false prophecies, then you need to make it really, really clear that the reason you're scared and the reason you believe these things is because you read it on the internet. The internet seems authoritative to you, that you've had other people reinforce it. So make it clear that it's coming to the story you're scared of, and it's not your own imagination that made it up, because that will help them to diagnose you accurately as being scared of something external rather than being schizophrenic. So that is very rare, but it has happened a couple of times. Actually, 2 people I've helped have been misdiagnosed being schizophrenic for a period of time, and then they explained things to the doctor more carefully. He then went and got them re-diagnosed, and then re-diagnosed as having PTSD or similar disorder. And then, in one case, and in the other case, he just left that therapist and he found another therapist who then treated him properly. So, yeah, I've got this note, but I've actually got a video. I'll probably add that in here that you can give to the therapist. And then don't worry, therapists, you will infect therapists with your fear, because they're there to help you. And they're not going to get scared of Nibiru. They're not going to get scared of Paul Beckley's false prophecy. And to bring up the topic of cognitive behaviour therapy, you can suggest things from your side if you think that would help you, and you just ask them. I think I wondered if this might help you. What are your thoughts? And so, and then there's all this. But you've got make sure you have enough exercise. Suicide crisis lines can help with nightmares, and help getting to sleep, and soundtracks here, and peaceful nature sounds that may help you to sleep well. Anyway, I'll put this in the video description as well. There's quite a few things, and I've got links to resources, and then I've got the breathe in and out, and so I've got also the breathe. I'll put that in the video description as well. Now, my breathe in and out slowly. I've got links to quite a few resources here that might be useful to you. So, the breathe in and out slowly page, I have that animation. Take a little while to come up. So that's the animation I did myself. So this is a very useful thing to do. But let me go full screen now. So you just go breathe in, breathe out. You breathe in and rest a bit. Then you breathe out. That slow breathing can be very helpful for, especially if you're in the middle of a panic attack. And just breathing in and out a few times like that can be very helpful. And it's a natural physical thing. It's a natural thing that happens. And then there's a deep breathing cycle you can do. And there's some various tips on relaxation from the UK Mind charity. And then there's De-Stress Monday, and that they do this. This is a group of mental health professionals who are associated with them, various universities, and there are lots of resources there that you can use to help reduce stress. And these are things that are kind of really good resources on the web, and chair yoga, things like that. There's and all sorts of things. So these are things that you can use even without a professional therapist. So I know many of you don't, for one reason or another, can't afford to, or not managing to get access to professional health therapists. I've got lots of resources here you can use. There's such a lady helping you with OCD and with obsessive thoughts. It's about the difference between panic attacks and heart attacks. If you get a lot of heart pain as a result of associated with very rapid speeding heart and breathing fast, then it may well be a panic attack, and it's not likely to be a heart attack, which is a rather different sensation. However, I'm not going to tell you as a doctor. Obviously, this is something. It's good if you get heart attacks. Not heart attacks. If you get panic attacks with pain in your heart region, then I strongly advise you to have a word about that with your doctor and learn how to distinguish between the heart pain from a panic attack and the heart pain from a heart attack, so that you know which they are, so that you and at least the heart attack syndromes, the panic attack syndromes. But I'm not doing this as a doctor. I'm saying, be vigilant. If you think it's a heart attack, and if you're unsure, then you do get emergency help. But I suggest do ask a doctor to explain the difference to you. Don't just go by what I've written on the page there. And then the other thing many people get is anxiety, nausea. So if you start, especially when you wake up in the morning, and you might just feel nauseous and vomiting, and the various tips there as to what you can do to help with that. And that is a symptom of fear. Basically, what is happening there is that your body is emptying your stomach so you can run faster. At least that's probably a physiological response, something like that. But anyway, it's something that happens when you're very scared. Then you naturally vomit and try and get rid of the contents of your stomach. And so don't be alarmed by that. But it's an unpleasant thing to happen, and there are various things you can do to reduce the possibility of that happening. It only happens if you're extremely scared. Boosting serotonin, exercise and sunshine, high fiber diet. And then a lot of people I help, they find it difficult to sleep, and they often wake up and they often get nightmares. So you certainly should see a doctor about this. And you may get sleepy a lot in the daytime. Now, one tip that may help is power naps. Set your alarm to 30 minutes, and now 10 minutes to get to sleep, and then 20 minutes of sleep. This is for people who just find it almost impossible to get a good night's sleep. They're very tired in the daytime. Then a power nap in the daytime may help you. If you just sleep in the daytime, often it's very frustrating because you wake up and you're even worse because you woke up in the wrong time in your cycle. And so if you go sleep for an hour or something, then you might wake up and you're very groggy. But a power nap for 40 minutes is just about the right time for most people. 30 minutes. That's because as soon as you sleep, you go very rapidly into deep sleep. And if you find it difficult sleeping at night, then you may well be able to do this quite easily. So you just drop off into sleep then you've got 20 minutes of deep sleep, and then you're woken up by your alarm, and you wake up refreshed. And you can do that several times during the day. And you can try also longer periods, like 90 minutes. And then some relaxing videos you can use. And many of the people I help are autistic. And this is a video that has been designed for autistic people to help them to relax. So this can be, some of you may find that useful. I'll just play a little bit of it with sound, though it probably won't reproduce very well. I'll turn down the speaker because you'll hear the sound. I'll put a little bit of speaker so I can hear it myself. Let's put the sound on. So that's been designed to help autistic people to calm down, because autistic people get overstimulated in the sound world and visually, and those sounds for some reason can help some autistic people to calm down, and the various other relaxing sounds, you can play them in the daytime while you're working, bird song, say. You find that relaxing. Most people find a little bit of bird song quite relaxing. So, or running water and things like that. You can try playing those in the daytime, or you can play them at night while you sleep. And even though when you're actually in deep sleep, you're not going to hear the sound, but when you start to surface from your sleep, then you're waking up from what may have been a nightmare, but then you hear these calming sounds, and then you'll calm down. And so it can help you as you wake up. And help you also if you half wake up and then go back to sleep again. So a lot of people that I help do have lots of problems with sleeping, and some of these sounds may help you. Then there are also, I forgot on this page, yes, I've got some meditations here. That's the Dalai Lama, and he's giving a general video. It's not a Buddhist meditation. It's a meditation that anyone can do. It's a shamatha meditation, which is to do with, you can just use it with no images at all, just light. And it's a way of just focusing your mind on one particular object, like feeling of light, that's just like a light. And you normally think within your heart or something like that. And there's a whole sequence to it, and here he explains how to do it. And then here's a Buddhist meditation on your breath, and this is another one, and then this is another one. They're mainly Buddhist meditation because I'm Buddhist. Now this is very good. So I strongly recommend this as well, as it's in several different languages, and this really, it's quite a good, an illustrated guide to what you do when you're experiencing stress and ways to deal with that. And it's about how these things hook your mind. So this is, again, it's not, you don't need to be a therapist you don't need to have a therapist to go through this. It's designed by the World Health Organization, and it's something you can work through by yourself. So this is another useful resource for people who, for one reason or another, have not been able to get hold of a therapist, perhaps because of the lockdown or for the expense or for other reasons. And it's worth a go. Have a go at working through it. Like you spend a day on it, then another day, and then another day on different sections of it, and go through and progress all the different exercises. They've got a vast number of exercises they give that you can do, and that can help you to deal with stress. So there are quite a lot of resources there, and I'll put links to all these pages to the video description. So yes, I'll just review what I just did, so the whole thing. So being scared doesn't mean there's anything to be scared of. Oh, and I didn't do the thing about the false prophecy trap. Do I have a bit about that? The prophecy trap. Okay, yes, I'll just talk a little bit about the prophecy trap and then I'll end. So if you've got scared of prophets, or false prophecies, then you can easily fall into the prophecy trap. And that's where you think, I've heard this false prophecy, and this prophet said that the world is going to end on, I'll say a date in the past, 1st of October 2019, say. I just made that up, but I chose one in the past, so as to not scare you with a future date. And so then you go and talk before the 1st of October 2019, you're trying to get people to help you. And basically, what you're probably trying to get them to say is to try to get them to prophesy something different. So you're asking them to prophesy that, well, this is going to end and everything's going to be okay on 1st of October 2019. And that's a prophecy trap. That if you got scared of one false prophet, and the only way you can think to get out of that is to find another prophet to prophesy a rosier future for them. And then you may end up asking me and other people in the group over and over and over, say, are you 100% sure it won't happen? And that reason is because you want a prophet, a true prophet. But there aren't any prophets. Say if there were, they would be used by governments, scientists, astronomers. I mean, ask a prophet, will my rocket explode? And if the answer is yes, you don't launch it, but look to see what the problem is. Well, that would have saved millions of dollars for SpaceX when they had several of their rockets explode. So if there were such things as genuine prophets, they would just say to the prophet, is my rocket going to explode? And the prophet would say, looking at the future, yes, it is going to explode. Say, oh, well, I won't launch it then. And then they'll go and look and try and find out what's wrong with it. But we don't have prophets. But what we do have are a good understanding of how the world works. And the summer follows winter, and winter follows summer, and day follows night. And if you drop a ball off the top of the Lee Pisa, you can work out how many seconds it'll take to reach the ground. And it always does that. So the world is very predictable. And so it's predictable, but it isn't predicted by looking into the future. So if you've got into this prophecy trap, you need to try and get out of it by just grounding yourself and just trying to get out of the way of thinking that what you've got to do is to try and find another prophet. Because nobody can see the future. Or if they do, if you're religious and you think that there were prophets at the time of Jesus and so on, and then, or for prophecies in the Old Testament times, then certainly it's very rare, and we don't seem to have them today, because we have these prophecies, people who make prophecies over and over again, and they're always wrong. And then you get these retrospective prophets, where they say so-and-so prophesied such and such, but nobody was prophesying that before the actual date. And then they go and look at this enigmatic prophecy, say, oh, actually what he meant was this thing that happened. And but you only saw that after the event happened, and so in that sense it's useless for prophecy. So we just don't seem to have prophets anymore, if there ever were. So instead, look, but we do have science, and science works very well, and science works by predicting, but not by prophesying. By actually predicting, by understanding how things work, by understanding the science, understanding if you do this, that happens. And that because planets orbit in such a way, we can predict exactly what's going to happen 10,000 years from now. And that's science. And you can't do that by prophecy. Like, you wouldn't use a prophet to ask, how much hydrogen and how much oxygen should I put into my rocket? What do you prophesy if I put 10,000 tons of hydrogen into my rocket? Is that the right amount? Or should I put less or more? Then they can't answer that. Or, how long should the wings be for a 747? And what shape should they be, and what should they be made of? Again, a prophet is useless for that. You can't prophesy, what kind of, what shape the plane needs to be. Basically, they can't see the future. And so, with the false prophets, and then the true prophets, they don't, if such exist, and that doesn't seem to be their area of interest. So that's from the distant past. So either if you're very religious, then you might think there are true prophets, but they're certainly not very accessible if there are such. And so the prophecy trap is just going around thinking, everyone is a prophet, and I've got to just go and I've got to try and find a prophet. It's the only way to find out about the future. And instead of that, you need to kind of get beyond that and realize actually, we don't. The problem was trying to find a prophet in the first place. That's why I got scared, because I believed a prophet. And you can actually live your life without prophets. You don't need to turn to organize your life around what the false prophets say or what anyone else says will happen in the future. Instead, you can use science, and you can ask people who know about science, and then you can ask them for their sources, ask them for evidence, and you'll find out what is actually being predicted. And say, is anything predicted for this future date that's scary? And you say, yes, there's the one I was talking about just now. Yes, there's a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. This is absolutely harmless. This is very would be quite enjoyable. It's rather enjoyable if you can manage to see it. It's rather beautiful. And so that's the actual thing that's predicted. And there's nothing there that's in any way scary. And so, and then people, they don't hide things. People don't hide things. Astronomers don't hide things. I could maybe talk about it in a separate video. Anyway, that's what I'm saying in this video too. And I'll upload this, and it's getting quite long. But I'm doing a couple of longish videos because I think some of the people I'm helping need a little bit of, need these rather longer videos. I don't know if I'm right there. Anyway, if you've listened to it this far, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was indeed what you needed. And I'm here to help in any way that I can.